Good morning. Welcome to Pries Capital. You must be the new recruit.
Oh, is this the new recruit?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Follow me, Mr. Superstar. Here at Pries Capital, we love showcasing art. The stunning bronze dragon sculpture Kiko by the renowned artist Nano Lopez is definitely a showstopper. And these pieces on the walls, the legendary Michael Godard is practically a rock star in the art world. There's art all over the office, creating a vibrant, creative atmosphere to work in and collaborate in. And here is Tyler Pries, our hardworking mortgage loan officer. If you're looking to purchase real estate in the Myrtle Beach area, Tyler's the guy to know.
Looks like you have your hands full. Ashlyn, can you grab a book for him? And I'll see you at the meeting.
And here's Raj, one of Jason's right-hand guys for commodities trading. Good morning, Raj.
Good morning.
Meet the new recruit.
Hi. Hope you like to work hard and play hard. This is a high-stakes environment. Split-second decisions can make or break an opportunity. Welcome to the firm.
Don't worry about Raj. He's a quiet powerhouse, but he's critical to everything we do here. And here's the founder and real estate powerhouse herself, Tina Pries.
Good morning. How are you? So glad to have you with us. Can't wait to see you in action. We're just about ready to start the meeting for Jason's market analysis. I will see you both in the conference room.
Good morning, Jason. This is the new recruit.
Hey, welcome. We're glad to have you here. Your skill set is exactly what we need. I love people dedicated to their craft. But hey, I got to get ready for this morning's analysis, so I'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, Jason. You're awesome. Right here, we have one of our many conference rooms. And down the hallway over here, we have the intelligent and sharp-eyed Miss Jill.
Why, thank you, Ashlyn. Nice to meet you.
Jill thrives in the world of spreadsheets, balance sheets, and financial forecasts.
You'll fit right in, so go check out your new office.
And here's your new office. And over here, we have some welcome goodies for you. Just a small thank you of saying welcome to the family. Okay, so I've got to get ready for the meeting, but check out the gym over here, grab some coffee and bagels in this room to the right, and then I'll meet you in the conference room.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead, take a seat. Welcome back to another morning market analysis. Let's get comfortable and dive in.
Good morning. Turning volatility into opportunity. Overnight action brought a sharp two-legged move lower, a decisive shift in tempo that's setting up beautifully for what I call the rug pull strategy. While many traders are shaken out by these overnight drops, seasoned professionals know this is where real opportunity hides. The key is not to chase it, but to understand it. When markets pull the rug, they're clearing liquidity. That clearing process often leads behind a well-defined traps, and those traps are our edges. Good morning. Welcome back to another Team Day Trader edition of the Daily Market Analysis. Grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in. For housekeeping, as always, subscribe and check out the resources linked in the description to stay ahead of the game. Any of the clients, you guys have got the morning market analysis, the written version. I wrote that at 7:30. It is now 8:30 as we start the live broadcast. So when I wrote that, futures were down 64 points. We're now down 77 points. We are opening out of balance. We'll talk about that on the trigger chart. So we are opening out of balance with heavy overnight selling. The 10-day average true range sits at around 62.25 points. So that's wide enough for some rotational setups. Net long volume delta sets about flat. When I figured the delta this morning at 7:30, to my surprise, volume delta was sitting flat. So that's kind of neutral. That doesn't really give any kind of edge to the sellers or the buyers in the overnight as far as volume. So likely it's just adjusting overnight shifts in the sediment. But let's break out into the long-term charts, right? This is the first time that I've seen you guys for the week of the new month. So, right, Friday, end of October. Over the weekend, we moved into November. I don't do these morning analyses on Mondays. And so it's Tuesday. It's the first day that I see you guys. First day, really, of the trading month for me in front of you guys. So I like to break out these longer term charts. Let me do this really quick where I break out this monthly chart. And really quick, let's go over things that we talk about when we look at higher time frames, right? We're always making these higher lows and higher highs, right? Really since that April. And we're sitting here in October closed. We rolled into November, right? And I talked about this with a couple people over the weekend, where what I'm looking for rolling into November is, right, we closed nice, fairly close to the highs from October. So longer term, I know we're day trading, but I do want this to kind of sink in a little bit as we work through like this week, going into next week, just kind of a little bit of a higher time frame. I always start from higher time frames, go down, and looking as this is, right, we made October's high and low, and then what we're looking for is a lower high and a lower low for the month of November. So I am looking at a higher time frame. Nothing is confirming that just yet, but as we work through the weekly charts, and the daily charts, the hourly charts, and get into our trigger chart, I'm just coming into, I just wanted to kind of set the tone, beginning of the month, where my mindset and bias is. We have to come into the markets with a bias every morning, and my bias going into November, as of at least the start of November, is with that kind of mindset. So a little bit of my personal bias going into the market, letting the chart set up, was coming into November with this concept of lower lows and lower highs. So with that said, we'll take this back into the weekly chart. Things to note that I just do normally, one of my day trade setups works off a longer time frame RSI on a weekly, and we are sitting above the 60. So in context, it does tell us, right, we are in kind of a bullish kind of phase, longer time frame, again, weekly chart. So this hasn't broke down underneath the 60. So again, when you're looking at the market, right, market either is trending, right, it's either trending higher, trending lower, it's going sideways in a range, or it's consolidating, right? And usually those are megaphones, triangles, those kind of setup patterns. So again, this really is a trending market. This shows that we're trending, and it is higher. On the daily chart, right, nice push lower over the overnight, right? This really is looking good for me. And like I said, going into this week, or the end of Friday, I really was looking at, that short bias. So I am positioned short as far as trading. So again, I'm going to have a little tilting bias going into this kind of narrative. But I do like to, we are coming down into the 20 on the daily chart, so keep that in mind. The 20 period moving average is 68.06 in a quarter, roughly, when we're looking at on a day chart. Let's get into something more granular. I want to look at a couple profile charts. Let's look at the market profile as we get into today's trading. Right, so as we get into today's trading, I always start off looking at, let me break this up. Right, looking at, this is last week's profile. I'm always looking from one week to the next, and then we open up yesterday's, trading action, And then in the overnight, you can see we broke and cleared, right, last week's low. So we're now distributing prices down here. We're creating a high volume node in the lower section or below last week's low. We do have single prints in the overnight. I'm not going to put too much weight on these, but they did print, so it is something to note. So we do have single prints, thin structure. So again, we're going to open up on a gap, right? So we got gap rules in play, and we got thin structure going from low volume nodes, right? Low volume nodes here into high volume nodes. And so we're just watching as that plays out, knowing where these are on the chart, right? So when we get into the key levels to watching that 68, 40, 75 and 68, 58 and a quarter. We'll talk about those again. Some of these numbers or some of the stuff that I kind of trigger off, I just want to give context and where I'm getting this so you guys can follow along. And obviously towards the end, we'll get to the trigger chart and we'll really kind of put this all together. So I did want to emphasize and show that picture, looking at that on the weekly. Let's attach that back. Now looking at this on daily profiles, right? We are opening, like I said, out of balance. So here we have balance from yesterday, static value, and then we are trading. You can see we're trading right there at 68.05 and a quarter currently. And so, right, price is pushed away from value. We have, and we're gapping. So yesterday's low, 68.49.50, and we do have gap rules in play, as I talked about before. And we do have value is migrating and shifting lower. So I did want to show that on the chart. And now let's go to our chart number 2, my volume profile chart, because that chart is where we get the levels. Right? So as we work through the volume profile, let me get my crayons. Right? Yeah, I don't want this to be in your guys' way. So as we shift through the crayons on the profile, you can see where I do have levels on support levels below us. You can see where we're this low volume node right here. I have that as 60. Oh, I thought I wrote that down on a piece of paper. That exact level is 69. No, I don't have it on there. It is 68.09, and I want to say a quarter. $68.0975. So 68.0975, you can see is this low volume. Let me get that in yellow. This low volume node into the distribution. So again, right, price rotates from value, one segment of the value to the next value. We do have, right, a distribution node up ahead, up above. We are really trading in the thin structure, low volume node, right, 68.0975, right? I'm looking for, as we get down into this price, the reaction down here in this volume node. Is it a tag up, right? Because when we back this out into a longer time frame, right, we can see where this is bullish, right? So we had the liquidation break a few Fridays ago, right? We consolidated and then broke out, pulled back, and then really broke out of this larger range, right? And so again, we're broke out, and this, people could argue that this is just a breakout pullback. And it could very well be. And that's what we're going to watch for in real time as the trade develops. Is as price comes into this volume distribution, right? There's a couple of volume nodes that even though this looks like one large volume node, you could break this down into two, right? There's a distribution here. You got a low volume node right there. And then you got this second distribution, right? And then you have this upper distribution, and then prices, like I said, these numbers I'm going to just kind of reiterate, 6809 and 3/4, that low volume. And so as we open up into this morning's session, that's what we're watching in real time, is as this comes down, what kind of reaction do we get down in here, right? Do we have gap rules in place? Is there gap failure? Watch that on the open. That's what I'll be watching for. Day trade setup number 1. And then we'll be watching for gap rules. And does the gap hold? And then you got gap rules in effect. And as price comes down, is this a tag up? Think of, wrestling. Is this just a tag where price then comes down? We open up, A period, they liquidate, you get more of a rug pull, and then it's a V bottom? Or does it drop and then, right, we chop down here? And it kind of, we'll have to see how the developing value, progresses. And that's really what I'm watching for, is how does the price react to this volume node? Is it a breakout, pullback, and then run back higher? Or is it, this is just false breakout, right? And so we broke out, false breakout, we come back down in, and then, right, over the course of time, we're going to spend some days, weeks, kind of chopping around in this range, right? And then you'll just have some rotations in and out. And I'm getting ahead of myself, Again, we're day trading one day at a time, but I'm anticipating, what are the different ways this market can play out, and when we get to one kind of goalpost to the next, how is their reaction? So, and then that reaction is telling you something. So do we come down in here and then we muddle around? Does it get stuck down in here? If that's the case, this will, over time, you'll look back and be like, oh, that was a breakout trap. And right, we came back in. It was a false breakout. If it isn't, and this is a true breakout, this is just a true breakout test, and then pull back and then go. Again, right, you'll make a low, right, in trending markets, right? You make a low, you make a high. This would just be, right, a lower low, and then if this is truly a breakout pullback test, then, right, it would end up making a higher high, and that's how you would think of it. If that's not how it is, this will play out as, over time, as a breakout failure, where we break out, fail, come back into range, muddle, and then over time, right, this will be a high, this is a low, right, and we should make like a lower low, and then you'll come back, a high, and then continue, right, and then that will be a trend reversal in the overall picture. That's way ahead of ourselves. Again, we're just day trading, but I do think it's important every day to look at where structure is, where the volume nodes are, where the thin structure becomes, that 6809, where high volume nodes are, so that 6870, between 6870, 67, 65, where we get stuck in muddle in the distribution nodes. So with that said, let's now break it down to our trigger chart. All right, as we get down to the trigger chart, this is where we make our money, right? We are looking at day trade setup number 1 and day trade setup number 9, right? So gap rules. So we got a couple things working with us right now. We do have gap rules in play, So when we think of gap rules, right? So one, your first reaction whenever gap rules come into play is to go with all gaps that don't fill right away, right? So if this is going to be a gap and go, right? I mean, a lot of the stuff is what's supposed to happen, and then does that happen or does it not, right? Like there's always, you know, if then. So if this happens, then this should happen. If then, constantly in your mind. So we're opening up in a gap, right? We closed here. This was yesterday's low, and we're gapping lower. So if we gap lower, and if it's a true gap, then it'll be a gap and go. And on a period, when we open up at 9:30, right, this will just kind of continue lower, right? We'll get down into that 67.80 to 67.65. You do have a VPOC below us here at 67.74.50. In the course of today, I am expecting that to kind of get tagged. You know, we're so close. So again, obviously, right, if that doesn't happen, then, right, that's telling me a little bit of the analysis is wrong, but we're so close to tapping that VPOC in that distribution. Again, the thing that I'm looking for is how do we settle down in here? Is it a tag and then a go, and then, right, we fill it up? What comes first, right? Off the open, I'm going to be patient. I'm not going to just jump into a trade thinking of a day chart, right? Price opens up. I'm not under the impression that we're just going to open up and then we're going to make a candle. Like, let's just say it's a green candle, right? We open up, and then boom, right there from the open, it's open, and then, you know, the bar closes and there's no wick, and say there's a wick up top, and we close the bar like that. That's not the candle that I'm looking for on a day chart, right? So I imagine we're going to open 9:30, and then we're going to, you know, create a tail in the chart. So, right, we're going to pierce down, possibly tag this up, and then see how that reaction unfolds, and then does it come back in, go through the open, right, and then maybe fill the gap, and then we close, and the daily candle on the day chart looks something like that, right? You open, pierce down to the bottom, test that high volume node, bring it back, fill the gap, and the whole thing gets, you know, cleaned up right, you know, in one day, where structure gets repaired all in one day. Test the high volume node and you fill the gap. No unsettling structure that needs to be, you know, carried forward. And, you know, this ends up being the look of the daily candle. I'm definitely watching for that. Today should be fairly easy trading that the market gave us in the overnight. You know, this gap down really should make it easy. Now, that's if the gap doesn't fill right away. Now, if we, right, we're making a march higher, we still got half an hour in time before the open, right? And so if we open and they make a run to fill that gap, right? If that happens first, right? Like, what happens first, right? So if they make a run and fill that gap, and that's what happens first, then I'm just looking for, right, this constant rollover, high, low, high, lower, lower, low, lower, high, lower, low. If this ran up, you know, I'd just be looking at this as to sell the rips and rotating in, like I said, day trade setup number 9. So I'm watching for day trade setup number 1 right off the top, and then I'll be looking for day trade setup 9 as the day progresses. And then, right, we're making then looking for that lower low. And so again, right, like, what do we got? Chart looks like that. That's how I'm looking at today. Now, the other thing, let me look at my notes here. Just what as I looked at this. I just want to make sure I'm not going all over the place today. So gap trade number, the gap failure, that's day trade setup number 1. Failed breakout reversal, day trade setup number 9. Sellers maintain the upper hand. I want to talk about this level of 68.58 and a quarter. Again, that goes back to the chart number 2, which is the major hold for the sellers, right? If this is the lower lows, lower highs, you know, this should be where you fill that gap. And then this really is that kind of major level of resistance, and you'd really want the sellers to hold that and not get above that level. Anything above 68.58 and a quarter really brings in a good argument where buyers, you know, sellers just, as per the usual, right, are weak hands. They're always weak hands. And, you know, just, it's a buy, you know, it is a buyer dip, as well as, like I just showed, we witnessed going through the larger time frames where this is just a breakout pullback. And in this case, this is a buying opportunity, right, where you get, and again, this can be construed as, right, you V bottom down here at the bottom, and then it's a 2-try setup, and this is a trap low, and then, right, buyers come in and they get up, and then they take it up here, and this is then where we're going to have to watch. This is going to be like the major Fight Club level. So do sellers come in, and this is just a way for anybody who was long up in here, do they just not feel confident anymore on their trade? And this is like an opportunity for them to, right, sell old business. So old business, overhead supply, and you get overhead supply, and then this rolls over and we get the shoot down, or, right, nobody sells, right? And so you don't get that selling pressure. This ends up being a trap low, pull up, get up into the Fight Club area, and then buyers do gain back control in this area, and then we shoot back up into static value. That's not my base case, but it's, again, constantly, I'm going to knock this into everybody's head. It's what should happen but doesn't. So as these things unfold, those are the things that you should be telling yourself, right? It's no different than playing football. You know, it's 1st and 10, all right? You know, now it's 2nd and 8, and now it's 3rd and 2. And so, right, for us to score, we need to get 2 more yards. Now, if we don't get 2 more yards, right, we got to then turn the ball back over. I mean, it's these things that, you know, when you were 1st and 10, you know, the next obviously is to try to get another 1st and 10, but maybe you only get 3 yards, and now it's 2 and 7. It's this constant marching, and in real time, you have to constantly objectively look at, like, what's happening. So if this happens, then this should happen. You know, if we get a 1st and 10, then we get a 2nd and 7, and then we get a 3rd and 3, you know, the next line should be another 1st and 10, right? Otherwise, it's a 4 and 2, and you have to then make a decision, like, do we go for it or do we punt? And it's that thing. It's like this, if we get price up in here, think about that. This is where, you know, sellers have to, like, engage and get another 1st and 10, and we have to take this back down, or we punt it and the buyers take back over, and then buyers come back up into range. That's how you should mentally be thinking about these. Other than that, I don't want to, you know, beat a dead horse, but that's about it. I mean, key levels to watch in the overall is at 68, 58 and a quarter, right? We talk about that. So 58 and a quarter, that's the must hold for the sellers to maintain the upper hand. Watch as price opens up. We already talked about that 58 09 3/4 on that low volume node, right? So do we fall into this distribution node that we looked at on chart number 2 on the volume profile, or do we get back up into this upper distribution? That's what you should be thinking about. And then as the day progresses, right, as we close and we final the candle, you know, where do we close at the end of the day? Anything below 6,800, you know, definitely I'm going to look at that as like continuation going into tomorrow, right? Sellers really kind of hold that upper hand. If we do get up into and close, like we had talked about, if this ends up making a green bar, we open up, it tests, and then we fill the gap and we come back in here, it's going to be a little, you know, tricky as we go into tomorrow. You know, again, we'll have to watch for the overnight action. What does that happen? Hopefully they always, you know, hopefully they help us out. Like today, they helped us out. This is a really nice setup. And today makes trading very easy. You're not getting chopped up. It's clear and distinctive progressions, right? So these guys gapping on the low, like this is just makes it nice. And I really like where we open it up. It's going to tell us very quickly in the trade, you know, does this ends up, you know, even though I'm bearish, right? I got this bearish view, don't get me wrong. You know, if I find that this comes down in and we ricochet off here, right? I'll take this, scalp this long, you know, from 57.90 or 67.90 and to get back up into the 68.50s, and then again, you know, just to then sell it back down to make a lower low. Now, if price gets down in here, I won't be going long, and I'll be, right, allowing my shorts to, you know, just sit and you know, play. Any kind of then move up, you know, if this gets sticky down here, yeah, you might get a little bit of a reprieve up, but then you know, they take it another leg lower. And then in that case, I'll be adding to the short. This is where that day trade setup number 9 comes into play. So again, day trade setup number 1, the gap failure. So the gap fails and they bring it back up, right? I'm watching for that. And then I'll be watching day trade setup number 9 as they continue the selling pressure. And you get, right, so this is it moves down. And then what happens is you get a spike in channel. So, you know, if you look at drawings, it'll be like a spike down and then it's this channel lower, right? And so it spikes down and then it rotates lower as the day progresses, right? So you get a spike down, right? Let me do this. And then we'll end it here. Right? And this should probably be a red crayon, right? So you'll get a spike down, and then what happens? Say you draw this, and then you get this rotation where it comes down, and comes down. Right? So those, again, trading is not hard. I wouldn't say it's easy. It's on a spectrum. Right? So there's easy, and then there's hard. Right? And so today we're coming in, and, you know, the setups coming in, the market's clearly giving us real easy setups this morning, right? It's not choppy. You didn't wake up this morning and we're some shitty choppy range, right? So, you know, we're kind of on the easy side of the spectrum. And so, again, do we get a spike in channel going lower? And if that's the case, the gap won't fill, right? You won't get day trade setup number 1 is not in play. It won't be in play. And then you're watching for a continuation as this kind of grinds lower, right? Sell the rips. Watch your market internals. right? That should kind of give you a little bit of an edge, your market internals, and then you go from there. If it's bullish, right, then we should open up. This should be a test. Maybe they test this low. I'll be watching for that, how that tests out. But, right, market comes in, they open up, it kind of tests lower, and then right away, if that day trade setup number one is going to unfold, this will do it very quickly. A period will come out, they'll come down, it'll reject, right? It'll come back through the open, your opening price, right? Opening price is the opening price. It's the opening price on a day chart, yada, yada, yada. It is the opening price, and it'll come back through, and then they'll march it fairly quickly back up to fill that gap. You know, yesterday's low, 68.49.50. This will happen relatively fast. You don't have to catch that long. You know, you just have to be aware of that setup. And then again, that's going to give you right to the next clue, is how this roll over. So, right? I mean, I don't know how much more I can beat that horse to death. I don't have anything else. Rips should remain sellable until proven otherwise. Monitor where value builds. The thing about this rug pull is, again, think of it as this should give you conviction. You know, this is one day of many days as we trade. So, you know, as we come in, this should be a day like today is that day that then should give you more conviction in the days, you know, following. Because we're at that kind of spot in the charts that's a make or break, right? So this should give us the conviction. Either one, if anybody who's bearish, this should be, you know, we should find out how strong these sellers are, or how much overhead supply there is in the market, and then this should kind of come down. If not, and you're bullish, this is this is like that line in the sand. You know, if you come into this market and you got a bullish take, right, then this is it. And this is, as me being a little bit bearish going into November, this is also going to be for me, right? So either one, this is that conviction. And if this is a seller failure on like an hourly or day chart, then boom, then one, right, I don't have to flip my bias, which is no big deal. I don't hold these things. This game is about making money, not, you know, toting right or wrong. Your P&L tells you how smart you are. Not any kind of fundamental analysis. But anyways, I don't want to get rants. But anyways, this should then, if it is bullish, this is the hold spot, right? And then this is going to continue bullish, and then, right, we're going to make a new all-time high and any of that. And then you're going to want to carry that forward and, like, you know, be long into the market and be long into November, right? So this is kind of that really good spot. I really like how today's opening up. I hope this is helpful to you guys. If any of you guys are traders and you guys do live in and around Myrtle Beach, you guys are always more than welcome. We do have a physical office. You guys can come on out to the office. We always love to meet traders. If you're in Myrtle Beach and you're vacationing, look us up, stop by, we can get dinner, whatever. Right, we do have a real estate brokerage. My wife runs the real estate brokerage as well. So if you're looking for any kind of real estate, right, we are heavily invested in real estate as much as we are in portfolio construction. So that's always something we can chit chat about, schedule an in-person consultation. Really, if it's anything to do with investments, investment research, private equity, real estate, finance, you know, That's where that's our niche. That's who we are. If you need healthcare or anything like that, then I'm not the guy to do. You do not want me to do open heart surgery on you. But if it's portfolio construction, day trading, real estate, finance, we're the people. You can check us out. If you're interested in day trading, check us out at teamdaytrader.com. Anything else? I mean, our main corporation is Pries Capital. That's where the private equity, the real estate, everything kind of sits. So, slide by the office. The address is right there above. 100 Sutter Drive, Suite 101, Myrtle Beach. Again, website, priescapital.com. If you're interested in the trading, it's teamdaytrader.com. Other than that, I don't really have anything to say. Don't forget, sequence equals failure into strength into pullbacks, and then you go back to retest highs and lows, and that's it. So with that said, we have great challenges and great opportunities, and with our help, we will meet them together. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one, guys.